ask you the details of this because we saw your research and what you have put out. The end plate, when this ransomware activates itself, shows that these are Khalistanis behind it.
It's a very interesting malware campaign which was came into attention I don't know on the 2nd of March this month. And what we found was they were uh, essentially utilizing a political agenda in this particular campaign. Now, this is not unusual. I also want to highlight that part. If you remember, when the COVID-19 was at the peak, a lot of malware infections, which we are seeing globally across all the enterprises and the governments, utilizing vaccination scams and so forth. So this is a known technique which the cyber criminals often deploy in order to utilize a particular political drive for their own objectives. Now, in this case, what we noticed, which is probably one of the exceptions, is that this particular ransomware is not that sophisticated. I mean, it's using potentially an open source technology, an open source software, which they basically modified and then put out the messages in order to lock people's computer, or more importantly, to get their attention. So what we were surprised to see was that it's not that sophisticated what we have seen in some of the other ransomwares out in the market, and hence there is a potential inference that this was actually just designed to get attention of the research community or the or the political people out there, just to spread the word around what the drive is all about. That's our point of view. Now, from the point when this was first detected, Cyble has already released the signatures for detection of this particular ransomware, and we are closely monitoring for any further updates on this part. But from the attribution perspective, who is exactly behind this, it's really hard to say at this point in time. And we don't suspect that this is something which is being driven by a state-sponsored actor. Rather, we felt this is more of an act of an activist who is just trying to spread a message out there, because the sophistication of the ransomware doesn't come across to us as serious what we have seen in the other parts of the world. So
true, but the final page that you've put out as Cyble in the report that we have accessed, and you've also shared the details with us, it talks about a particular messaging which indicates a Khalistani or a aspect, because it says it's a Khalsa cyber forge is what they call themselves. And the messaging is very, very political, and to try and use this to intimidate, use this to extort, and to use this shows a very, very nefarious intent, because there is somebody who's backing them, somebody who's funding them, somebody who's telling them go ahead and push all this malware and this ransomware and dump it onto the Indian data domain.
I think if you look at how the typical black markets or black economy works in a cyber world or cyberspace, spreading a phishing or a malware campaign is pretty cheap out there. It's a commodity these days. Now, in order to get attention of people, which by the way is largely controlled through the media houses, one of the other approaches which often activists undertake is to either send some email campaigns to a broader people to spread their messages. Now, in this case, we see a very interesting twist where they're using potentially an open source ransomware, who they've modified it, and then now they're putting out their messages, which basically it's more of a angle where they are utilizing the current political climate to spread their voice, at the same time getting people's attention, locking their computers on there and putting them out of work.
No, but for somebody to do this, to try and get people's attention, to intimidate them, to try and force them, and to say that no, you cannot access, and we are going to curb your freedom to access your data, freedom to operate your computers, freedom. It's an invasion into somebody's privacy, into somebody's freedom, liberties, and impinging on their rights. So this entire aspect then becomes an extortion business. This becomes an intimidation and a domination business. How can these people then claim that their cause is just? Beenu.
I think it's more or less about the cause here. I think what we are observing is this is not the first time when we've seen cyber criminals utilizing political topics in their campaigns or in the malware campaigns. Often, if you look at the type of cyber criminals we have seen in the history of this short cyberspace, is we have all the way from typical script kiddies who are just doing stuff out of their curiosity, all the way to state-sponsored threat actors or hackers who are funded by the governments. But also there's a pretty large chunk of threat actors which we have seen are activists. If I refresh your memory of people, we had an infamous anonymous group who also were driven by some political agendas when they were targeting a large number of companies out there across pretty much all the regions, including in the Middle East and the US. Now, in this case instance, we don't see that to be a big difference. I think it's definitely driven by a political agenda in order to get the message out to as many people as they can. And yeah, it's not the first time, it's not going to be last time, but it's just another example on how cyber criminals are continuously adopting their techniques or tactics when it comes to fulfilling their goals or their motives.
So
this is another good example.